There are certain themes of which the interest is all absorbing, but which are too entirely horrible for the purposes of legitimate fiction. There are themes so horrible that are not suitable for fiction. We have read about sickness, failure, and death, but this is accepted by the nature of its origin, the truth. I need not remind the reader that from the long and weird catalogue of human miseries, I might have selected many individual instances more replete with essential suffering than any of these vast generalities of disaster. Being buried alive is without doubt the most terror-inducing extreme a simpler mortal could suffer. The edge between life and death are in the best of cases blurry and undefined. Who could say where one ends and the other begins? We know of illnesses that can cause the apparent case of vital functions. They are only temporary pauses in the incomprehensible mechanism. We have the direct testimony of medical and ordinary experience to prove that the vast number of such interments have actually taken place. One of very remarkable character, and of which the circumstances might be fresh in the memory of some of my readers, occurred not very long ago. The wife of one of the most respectable citizens was seized with a sudden and unaccountable illness. After much suffering, she died.
She's dead.
Or was supposed to die. No one suspected, indeed, or had reason to suspect, that she was not actually dead. The lady was deposited in her family vault, which for 3 subsequent years was undisturbed. She had revived within 2 days after. Possibly she died, though. Sheer terror and in falling her throat became entangled. My own case differed in no important particular from those mentioned in medical books. Sometimes, without any apparent cause, I sank little by little into a condition of semi-syncope, and in this condition, without pain, without ability to steer, or strictly speaking, to think, but with a dull lethargic consciousness of life, of the presence of those who surrounded my bed. I remained until the crisis of the disease restored me. My fancy grew charnel. I talked of worms, of thorns and epaphs. I was lost in reveries of death, and the idea of premature burial held continual possession of my brain. The ghastly danger to which I subjected haunted me day and night.
From the innumerable images of gloom which thus oppressed me in dreams, I select for record but a solitary vision. Methought I was immersed in a cataleptic trance of more than usual duration and profundity. Suddenly there came an icy hand upon my forehead, and an impatient, gibbering voice whispered the word, "Arise!" within my ear. I sat erect. The darkness was total. I could not see the figure of him who had aroused me. Fantasies such as this, presenting themselves at night, extended their terrific influence far into my waking hours. My nerves became thoroughly unstrung, and I fell a prey to perpetual horror. I hesitated to ride, or to walk, or to indulge in any exercise that would carry me from home. In fact, I no longer dared trust myself out of the immediate presence of those who were aware of my proneness to catalepsy, lest, falling into one of my usual fits, I should be buried before my real condition could be ascertained. I entered into a series of elaborate precautions. Among other things, I had the family vault to remodelate as to admit of being readily opened from within. The slightest pressure upon a long lever that extended far into the tomb would cause the iron portal to fly back. There were arrangements also for the free admission of air and light, and convenient receptacles for food and water. It was dark, all dark. I knew that the fit was over. I knew that the crisis of my disorder had long passed. I knew that I had not fully recovered the use of my visual faculties. And yet it was dark, all dark, the intense and utter restlessness of the night that endureth for evermore. The movement of the jaws, in this effort to cry aloud, showed me that they were bound up, as is usual with the dead. I writhed and made spasmodic exertions to force open the lid. I would not move. I felt my wrist for the bell rope. It was not to be found, and now the comforter fled forever, and I still sterner. Despair reigned triumphant, for I could not help perceiving the absence of the paintings which I had so carefully prepared. And then there came suddenly to my nostrils the strong peculiar odor of most moist earth. The conclusion was irresistible. I was not within the vault. I had fallen into a trance while absent from home, while among strangers, when or how I could not remember, and it was they who had buried me as a dog, nailed up in some common coffin, and thrust deep, deep and forever.
I think he's dead.
This awful conviction forced itself thus into the innermost chambers of my soul. I once again struggled to cry aloud, and in this second endeavor I succeeded. A long while and continuous strike, or yell of agony, resounded through the realms of the subterranean night. This incident occurred in my own apartment, accompanied by loneliness. Night approached, and I was overtaken by a storm. I was attracted by the wardrobe, looking for a warm and a deft blanket. Everything went dark, and I only could feel the weight of things falling on me. I was paralyzed. I was terrified, trapped in a closed space, barely breathing. All of my vision, for it was no dream and no nightmare, arose naturally from the circumstances of my position. The man who shook me was one of my friends, who went to visit me that night. The tortures endured, however, were indubitable, quite equal for the time to those of actual sepulture. They were fearfully, they were inconceivably hideous, but out of evil proceeded good, for their very excess wrought in my spirit an inevitable revulsion. From that memorable night, I dismissed forever my charnel apprehensions, and with them vanished the cataleptic disorder, of which perhaps it had been less the consequence than the cause.